I'm Anna Crowe. I'm going to read an excerpt from A 1,000-Mile Walk to the Gulf by John Muir, written about 1870. Chapter 7, A Sojourn in Cuba. Occasionally, I was persuaded by the captain to go ashore in the evening on his side of the harbor, accompanied perhaps by 2 or 3 other captains. After landing and telling the sailors when to call for us, we hired a carriage and drove to the upper end of the city, to a fine public square adorned with shady walks and magnificent plants. A brass band in imposing uniform played the characteristic lance-noted martial airs of the Spanish. Evening is the fashionable hour for aristocratic drives about the streets and squares, the only time that is delightfully cool. I never saw elsewhere people so neatly and becomingly dressed. The proud, best family Cubans may fairly be called beautiful, are under rather than oversized, with features exquisitely molded and set off with silks and broadcloth in excellent taste. Strange that their amusements should be so coarse. Bullfighting, brain-splitting bell-ringing, and the most piercing artificial music appeal to their taste. The rank and wealth of Havana nobility, when out driving, seems to be indicated by the distance of their horses from the body of the carriage. The higher the rank, the longer the shafts of the carriage, and the clumsier and more ponderous are the wheels, which are not unlike those of a cannon cart. A few of these carriages have shafts 25 feet in length, and the brilliant liveried driver on the lead horse, 20 or 30 feet in advance of the horse in the shafts, is beyond calling distance of his master. Havana abounds in public squares, which, in all my random strolls throughout the big town, I found to be well watered, well cared for, well planted, and full of exceedingly showy and interesting plants, rare even amid the exhaustless luxuriance of Cuba. These squares also contained fine marble statuary and were furnished with seats in the shadiest places. Many of the walks were paved instead of graveled. The streets of Havana are crooked, labyrinthic, and exceedingly narrow. The sidewalks are only about a foot wide. A traveler experiences delightful relief when, heated and wearied by rains through the breath of the dingy yellow town, dodging a way through crowds of men and mules and lumbering carts and carriages, he at length finds shelter in the spacious, dustless, cool, flowery squares. Still more when, emerging from all the din and darkness of these lane-like streets, he suddenly finds himself out in the middle of the harbor, inhaling full-drawn breaths of the sea breezes. The interior of the better houses, which came under my observation, struck me with the profusion of dumpy, ill-proportioned pillars at the entrances and in the halls, and with the spacious, open-fielded appearance of their enclosed square house gardens or courts. Cubans in general appeared to me superfinely polished, polite, and agreeable in society, but in their treatment of animals, they are cruel. I saw more downright brutal cruelty to mules and horses during the few weeks I stayed there than in my whole life elsewhere. Live chickens and hogs are tied in bunches by the legs and carried to market thus, slung on a mule. In their general treatment of all sorts of animals, they seem to have no thought for them beyond cold-blooded, selfish interest. In tropical regions, it is easy to build towns, but it is difficult to subdue their armed and united plant inhabitants and to clear fields and make them blossom with breadstuff. The plant people of temperate regions, feeble, unarmed, unallied, disappear under the trampling feet of flocks, herds, and man, leaving their homes to enslavable plants, which follow the will of man and furnish him with food. But the armed and united plants of the tropics hold their rightful kingdom plantfully, nor, since the first appearance of Lord Man, have they ever suffered defeat. A large number of Cuba's wild plants circle closely about Havana. In 5 minutes' walk from the wharf, I could reach the undisturbed settlements of nature. The field of the greater portion of my rambling researches was a strip of rocky common, silent and unfrequented by anybody save an occasional beggar at nature's door asking a few roots and seeds. This natural strip extended 10 miles along the coast northward, with but few large-sized trees and bushes, but rich in magnificent vines, cacti composites, leguminous plants, grasses, etc. The wild flowers of this seaside field are a happy band, closely joined in splendid array. The trees shine with blossoms and with light reflected from the leaves. The individuality of the vines is lost in trackless, interlacing, twisting, overheaping union. Our American South is rich in flowery vines. In some districts, almost every tree is crowned with them, aiding each other in grace and beauty. Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee have the grapevine in predominant numbers and development. Farther south dwell the greenbriers and countless leguminous vines. A vine common among the Florida islets, perhaps belonging to the dogbane family, overruns live oaks and palmettos, with frequently more than 100 stems twisted into one cable. Yet in no section of the South are there such complicated and such gorgeously flowered vine tangles as flourish in armed safety in the hot and humid wild gardens of Cuba. I hope you've enjoyed this excerpt from John Muir's book. I'm Anna Crowe. Stay well.